A wet start to hurricane season, but not associated with the tropical system. Jeff, Chris, and I will dig into the hurricane season a little more in the June 8th edition of the Water Resources Outlook. So as mentioned in our last Water Resources Outlook, we'll be talking about the tropical season for this year and maybe what to expect in the coming season. Also, where we are right now if we happen to get a tropical system in the near future.
So starting off with our past precipitation, as we always show you in the Water Resources Outlook, we see the past 30 days has been pretty generous across the southeast, especially with recent rains and the latest wet weather pattern. Some areas seen over 10 inches of the rain, shown in the pinkish purple color there noted by the legend. Most areas at least getting 5 or more inches indicated by the red color. So how does this compare to normal? We see the departures from normal in this map, and you can see many areas running 4 or more inches above normal, highlighted by the purple. Recent heavy rains in South Florida as well have helped with drought conditions there. Overall, some areas have seen well above normal rainfall since early May, and almost everywhere has seen at least normal rainfall amounts.
Drought conditions are shrinking across the southeast, and it is affecting less area in the southeast. This depiction does not include the last 2 days of rainfall over the southeast, so therefore next Thursday's drought monitor should see some pretty significant improvements. We don't see any more D3, the red color, in the southeast, which is great news. It's been a while since we've done that as we recover from our fall and winter drought that we experienced.
So as we are now into June, it is time to talk tropics, and though June tropical storms are pretty rare, they can happen. Most of the June storms will originate in the Gulf of Mexico and around the Yucatan. What about future months? Let's take a look here at July, and we see development in the Caribbean, and as we go into late summer and early fall, when tropical storms are much more common, we see the initiation of tropical storms can be farther out in the Atlantic. And as I pointed out, tropical storms are not real common in June and July, as the graph shows here. Once we get into August, the slope of this graph really steepens, and the peak is from late August through late September. With that being said, last year we actually had 3 tropical storms from late May through June, so an early year indeed. So speaking of 2016, let's take a look at the number of tropical storms in the entire Atlantic Basin, the Gulf and Caribbean, relative to those which affected the Southeast. And as we said, last year started early and was active with 15 storms, of which 5 of those affected the Southeast. This was the most active season for the Southeast since 2005, when we had 7 storms affect the Southeast. One of those storms, Matthew, in early October of 2016, produced devastating flooding in the Carolinas to the likes of Hurricane Floyd and the great 1928 Lake Okeechobee storm. So how many storms do we typically see on average affecting the Southeast? Looking at data from 1950 through 2016, about 1 to 2 storms affect the Southeast each year, with some seasons seeing 3 to 4. On rare occasions, we see no storms, and on rare occasions, 5 or more storms can happen, like last year. So heading into the tropical season, what do our stream flows look like? Here we have the latest USGS 28-day stream flows, and we see the most streams are at least near normal in the southeast, with rivers and streams in North Carolina, southern Virginia, and the upper part of the Alabama watershed seeing above normal stream flows. Recent rains in central Florida have helped streams recover a bit down there closer to normal as well, but some streams are still recovering, indicated by the below normal levels shown by the red colors. As far as flood climatology, we are in week 23, and typically we don't see much flooding this time of year, even though we can get some pretty good rains. Vegetation and evapotranspiration are increasing, and this limits runoff considerably. The only location we see river flooding increase is across central Florida, where the convective rainy season begins and leads into the tropical season. Our historical flood climatology indicates we have a couple more weeks before river flooding becomes more apparent in this region. By late summer, tropical systems installed fronts become big rainmakers, and we can get even more widespread river flooding across the central Florida area.
We're beginning the period with a front across the Florida peninsula and high pressure to the north of it. This front will be the focus for precipitation in the short-term period. As we go into the weekend, we'll see that the front lifts slightly further north as a warm front, bringing chances for rain northward with it. Looking into the midterm period, the front will mix out, and we can expect a typical summer pattern with daily thunderstorms. By the end of the midterm period, models are indicating an area of low pressure to the west of the area, which could potentially reach the southeast during the long-term period. The current 7-day forecast shows that the bulk of the rain is expected in the southern portion of the area, and especially in the Florida peninsula. This is mainly associated with the front in the short-term period. In the long-term outlook, we're anticipating above normal precipitation amounts, mainly due to models indicating an area of low pressure that could impact the region.
The National Weather Service recently issued their forecast for the hurricane season. It looks like we're expecting an active season this year with 11 to 17 named storms. While this is interesting information, it doesn't always paint the whole picture about our rainfall chances in the southeast based on that forecast. We could have an inactive season and be impacted by 2 storms during a year, and it would seem like a really active year. However, if 19 storms stay in the Atlantic and don't impact land, it would seem like an inactive year. Stay tuned to the Southeast River Forecast Center and your local weather office and be prepared if a storm is headed in your direction. Since we are spending much of the water resources out talking about the tropical season, I thought I would show historically where storms have formed in the past for the coming 10-day periods. Here's the June 11th to 20 tropical system formations. The Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean are the formation areas. This will be a theme as we go through the next few slides. More of the same as we look at the end of June, not much of a change from the middle of June. By the beginning of July, we start to see more formation of storms in the Atlantic Ocean portion of the basin, although it is still not especially active. We will try and include these climatologies as we go through the season in each of these water resources outlooks. In our last Water Resources Outlook, the monthly forecast had us in equal chances for above, below, and near normal rainfall. However, at the end of May, the pattern was setting up to be active in the southeast, and so far, that is exactly what we have seen. And while wet season is beginning for Florida and those along the Gulf Coast, it has been especially active recently. Good news for those in the drought, but lots of water for those in areas of South Florida that have been hit especially hard. We don't forecast many rivers in South Florida, but many communities have been affected by the heavy rain and need to stay tuned to information from their local weather office for warnings and advisories. The rest of the Southeast should continue to stay pretty active this month. Chris hinted at that in the meteorology portion of the WRO. Here's the same outlook we saw back in May for June, July, and August seasonal outlook. Due to the recent heavy rains in the southeast and a possible active rest of June, this seasonal period could end up wetter than we originally forecast. And as we get into fall, models are hinting at continued wet for September, October, November time period. Maybe we can put an end to the drought over all of the southeast during this period. It's really kind of unusual for this time of year. We'll just have to see. So the bottom line, in the short term, an active June. We've already begun active. It looks like it's going to stay pretty darn active for the rest of the month. Wet season in Florida has truly begun, which is good news as they were experiencing drought and what we talked about a little bit earlier. As for the long term, really normal rainfall is expected, maybe slightly above normal as I mentioned before, but an above normal tropical season. How that affects our weather in the southeast we'll just have to see, but it does look like an above normal tropical season. It has been forecasted, so we'll see whether that pans out. We expect to record our next Water Resources Outlook on July 13th, 2017.